ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hरि Om, salutations to all. So yesterday we saw the last verse, 548. The sun appears to be as though covered, as though eaten up by the Rahu, but the wise people know that that is never happening and that's only a imagination or just a delusion. Sun is never swallowed. In the same way, 549 says, Tadvaddehadi bandhebhyo vimuktam brahma vittamam pashyanti deha vinmudhaha sharirabhasa darshanat. How the deluded people think that Rahu has eaten up the sun. In the same way, Tadvat Dehadi Bandebhyo Vimuktam Brahmavittamam. The person who is a knower of Brahman, who is freed from this identification with the body, the deluded ones see them. Muraha Pashyanti Dehavin. The deluded people, they see the realized person as though having a body. Sharira Abhasa Darshanat. The body is there, but the master is not thinking of oneself as the body. Now that people who are deluded, they don't know that. Like those who are on the earth, they think that the Rahu has eaten the sun. If they lift up themselves above the earth, then they see that there is no such phenomenon happening. In the same way, one who is oneself identified with the body will look at the Jivan Mukta also as having a body and identified with the body. But the Jivan Mukta is risen above body identification. Dehadi bandebhyo vimuktam. Pashyanti deha vinmudhaha sharirabhasa darshanat. Gurudev has given in his commentary one more aspect of the analogy, that we have no knowledge of the self because of our mental agitations. Because in that, so in the solar eclipse, the moon's shadow, the moon coming in between is what creates that shadow, that illusion that sun has been eaten up. And moon being the deity of the mind, so Gurudev extended that analogy to that point. The shadow is the mental agitations in us. So it appears that the sun in us, that is the consciousness, is as though eaten up by all our thought agitations, and we are trapped in thought, not being aware that we are actually that thought-free awareness pure consciousness which illumines all the thoughts. The solar eclipse we are able to see actually because of the light of the sun only. The moon is coming in between, that also is known to us by light of the sun only. Same way, the thought agitations, they arise in the mind, it appears that they have covered the sun in us. So we feel very disturbed or anxious or stressed, and so we feel, I am not realized, or realization is somewhere far away. Right now my mind is very disturbed. So that is because we are attached to that mind as I, or we are attached to the body as I. So deha can mean both. Dehadi bandebhyo means deha adi is written there. Physical body, etc. Meaning both mind, physical body, the mind, the intellect, all five bodies that we have seen. So what is the solution? Rise above body identification. The final advice is that all sadhanas is meant to, all sadhanas are meant for helping us to rise above body identification. I am not this body, that is the crux. Any amount of sadhana one may do, but if this one does not come to, then one is still not free from the ultimate standpoint. One may be freed from some agitation, some negative karma, those things one may be free from. Some poverty, some emotional loss, some pain in the world. Those things one may be free from by doing different types of sadhanas. But the crux of it all is drop the body identification. Now another beautiful analogy comes. Ahinirlava, ahi, ahinirlva yanivayam मुक्तदेहस्तु तिष्ठति इतस्ततः चाल्यमानो यत्किंचित् प्राणवायुना. So the example is given of a snake which sheds the skin. Ahi is the snake. Muktadehastu tishtati. Just like the snake which wants to shed its old skin, when it actually sheds the old skin, it stays still for a while. The old skin as though comes out of, it detaches from the snake, and the snake as though slithers out of that old skin. Now that old skin, if you see, will look like the snake only, but there is no snake inside. The snake is gone. That's the example given here. The body of the realized person is compared here to the old skin of the snake. Ahinirla yaniyam nivayam muktadehastu tishtati itastatas chalyamano yatkinchit pranavayuna. That in the snake analogy, the snake has gone out of the skin. The old skin remains there, and by the movement of air, wind, that skin may be, shaking also. So somebody who is not alert or careful may actually get scared because there is a snake and that snake is moving about. But actually there is no snake, there is only the dead skin. See, our great masters have, what all they have observed and how they have brought Vedanta through it is amazing. The Jivan Mukta has gone beyond the body identification. The entity inside is finished. In that example, the snake is still existing. Only the snake has gone out of, shed the old skin. The new skin has come and the snake has moved out. So the snake as an independent entity still exists. And the old skin appears as the snake, and because of the wind movement, somebody may think it is moving also. In this example of a realized person, the person is finished. There is no entity. Mr. So and so is gone, is dead. It's not that from this body one has ejected and gone to another. That will be example for all of us. That is, body is dead. One body is dead. The Jivatma gets out of one body, goes into another body because of karma. For the Jivan Mukta, while living itself, the entity is dead. There is no going coming for that person. Upanishad say, na tasya pranaha utkramanti. The prana of that person will not eject like all of us. For us, it will go out through any of the 9 holes in the body, and one it will go along. It's a part of the subtle body, so it will go along with the subtle body, go through appropriate karma, and get into the next body. For Jivan Mukta, pranas get merged with the 5 pranas, finished. And there is no causal body, there is no subtle body, and a gross body also dead when prarabdha karma of it is over. But while that Jivan Mukta is living, that Jivan Mukta is like that old skin of the snake. There is no snake inside. But the movement as though appears because of the wind. Same way the Jivan Mukta appears to be living, talking, walking, doing so many things like any of us, but there is no Mr. So and so inside. It is our delusion that we are seeing one Mr. So and so there. So this is the example of that snake. Gurudev has said the body moves as long as prana is in that. So he's compared that wind. So that wind makes that thing appear as moving. Again, the limitation of the analogy is only an appearance there. It is not actually moving about. But the Jivan Mukta is actually moving about without any entity inside. And that's why Jivan Mukta is most puzzling. Now, who is functioning there? From Vedanta standpoint, there is no entity functioning inside. There is no individuality. If at all one has to say, one says Ishvara is functioning 100%. Vedanta says Ishvara is functioning through us also 100% only. It is our ignorance that we think that we are doing. Ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. It is our delusion to think we are doing. Otherwise, Ishvara only is doing all this. 100%. There is no partnership between Jiva and Ishvara. We can say there is a partnership between Jiva and Ishvara from a lower standpoint, where one does not even believe in Ishvara. Then one says, okay, no, you are not doing everything. There is a partnership between you and Ishvara. You do the best and then you leave the rest. So you are the karta and Ishvara is the karma phala data. So you both think, have a partnership. Then at a higher level it is said, no, you are not even the karta. You are only a nimitta. Ishvara is the karta. Ishvara is the karma phala data also. 100% it is Ishvara only who is doing. No, at least I am nimitta. Still one level higher, if we go, we say you are not nimitta also. Why? Because this body also is made up of 5 elements which came from Ishvara only. Who are you? If you inquire, you will find there is zero. There is no entity called Mr. So and so. So instrument also is Ishvara, Karta is also Ishvara, Bhokta is also Ishvara. And when one understands that very well, then one realizes all this is false. Nothing of this got created at all. That is the highest level. So that's why Jivan Mukta is a very wonderful phenomenon in in that way, if one wants to say. Because how is that person acting? Functionally, it appears that acting like any of us. But spiritually speaking, there is no entity inside. One has awakened to the truth that there is only one consciousness, there is no world. One is abiding in that self, and yet all actions are happening. So, example given here is of that snake. The snake moves out. That Jivan Mukta is the entity has gone long back. Literally, literally speaking, that is called sannyas. One has dropped to not pick up again. By understanding that it was never me. Again, the limitation of snake example is the skin was belonging to the snake, and the snake has shed that skin and gone out of that old skin. For the Jivan Mukta, the realization is not that this body was mine and now I have come out of that and now I have a new form of existence. No, 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 no. The realization of the Jivan Mukta is I was never the body. The highest state would be that there is no world, so there is no body at all. So whose body, which body, what world? Nothing. But one notch below, if we have to say, then that person says, this was never mine. To think of this as mine is what was a delusion. That is the cause of sorrow. So on one hand, the analogy is to make us understand that how that skin, where there is no snake, appears to be moving. In the same way, Jivan Mukta appears to be moving in the world without any entity inside. Then there are the other aspects of the analogy that we saw. Now, in the last paragraph of this commentary, Gurudev says here that he is not responsible for the merits and the demerits acquired by the body. By the grace of life and the dictates of prarabdha, it moves up and down. So earlier it was said prana, now it is prarabdha. And both are similar because prana exists, so prarabdha can get completed. He does not care a hoot whether the slough, the body, is preserved or destroyed, consecrated or adored or insulted. It matters not to him. So that's how the Jivan Mukta lives. No doership, no enjoyership, no body identification, reveling in that bliss. Srotasa niyate daru yatha nimnonna tasthalam daivena niyate deho yatha kalopabhuktishu. Another analogy. See, so many analogies are all taken from nature. Most beautiful analogies. So, olden days, if you see the way they transported huge logs of water, of wood, they cut the tree, big size it will be, huge, long and big size of wood. What would they do? How to transport it? Up there in the mountains, if they have cut it, it has to reach the plains. Free transport. How? Put it in the water, river. A flowing river will be there. Put that in the water. Srotasa niyate daru. The force of the river, the current of the river will push that wood. Yatha nimnonnata sthalam. The piece of wood is carried by this river to Nimna, low place, or Unnata, higher place. Wood has no say in that. Wood is thrown into the water, wood floats, and the power of the river will take it anywhere. Sometimes the wood may get stuck on a big boulder, you know. Sometimes it will reach very fast. It can happen, anything can happen to that wood. But the wood is we can say the wood has as though surrendered. The example is of that. Similar example earlier has come. The leaf, when it falls, the wind takes it wherever. We saw that example also earlier when the Jivan Mukta is described, that wherever the wind, whichever direction the wind is blowing, that leaf which is falling will go in that direction. The leaf has no control. The leaf has surrendered fully to the wind. Same way here it is for the piece of wood. This piece of wood flows in the river. Reverse current, reverse direction, it will direct the wood wherever it has to go. Wood has no will of its own. The people who want the wood to reach at a particular place, they may keep a track of that, and they may go and collect it at some point in time, at some place. That is up to them. That's the limitation of their knowledge. So here, who is the river now? Daivena niyate dehaha. The word daiva, one meaning can be the Lord himself, Ishvara. Other meaning Gurudeva has given here is the momentum of the past actions. The prarabdha of this body. That is the momentum of the past actions. Daivena niyate deho. Yatha kalopa bhuktishu. As and when the past karma will manifest, then that body will experience the fruits of that action, the earlier actions. The Jivan Mukta has no self will now to create further actions. One will experience the prarabdha karma phala without producing new karma phalas, new karmas, new vasanas. One will just go through it. No ego, no insistence, nothing. So daivena niyate deho. The body is carried by the momentum of the past. So from karma standpoint, we can say yes, it is the momentum of the past. From the bhakti standpoint, we say it is the kripa of Ishvara or the grace of the Lord, that whatever the Lord wants will happen through this body. There is no insistence, there is no specific personal agenda. There may be a apparent agenda, that is will of Ishvara, or we can say prarabdha karma, whichever one wants to say. It may be that, the revival of a culture or serving a particular noble cause or removing the suffering of people. It can be any such cause. But daivena niyate, there is no personal agenda in that by doing that one feels worthy, or by doing that one feels one has accomplished, or by not doing it then one feels incomplete. All those things are not there. We do things for these three motives: to get what we don't have, to protect what we have. These are two main motives. Third, we can't sit quietly. We are restless, so we have to act. Our action is prompted by any of these three only. None of these three are there in the Jivan Mukta. So action is still happening. Then how it is happening? Like the wood, no, that example is very nice. The wood by itself doesn't do anything, but the wood is still appearing to move. Who is taking that wood? What is taking that wood ahead? It is the power or the force in the river. The wood is there in the river. Now, if river is flowing downwards, the wood will flow downwards. Same way, the body is there. Jivan Mukta is gone out of the body. No identification with the body. Then, how so many actions are happening? Jiva is not there. Body identification not there. Like the dead wood. Then, what is taking this forward? Past karma or will of the Lord. Another example given for this is like the fan. The fan keeps rotating. Now, if you go and switch off the fan won't suddenly stop. Electric supply has been cut, but the momentum of its rotation will ensure that the fan keeps rotating for some time till it comes to standstill. Same way, past momentum is carrying forward this body. More, I mean, that person doesn't have any more desire, any more individuality, all that is gone. The switch is off. Still, it appears that there is an individuality. There is no individuality actually. So that's the example. Srotasa niyate daru. So Gurudev has also given the same two interpretations. One is uh, the directions of his actions are determined by the total vasanas, which are the upadhis of God, the creator, the controller of everything. So that is Ishwar Ichha. So his body moves in accordance with the time as the prarabdha karma manifests. So it is both. And they both are not completely different or independent interpretations. They are connected because the prarabdha cannot function unless Ishvara Ichha is there. Ishvara is the karma phala data. Only when karma phala data provides that this jiva has to get these karma phalas in this life, and so this particular body, that is Ishvara Ichha only. So they are not completely opposite or completely different, but whichever of one suits, or if a combination suits, take both. Important point is get out of the body identification is what the shloka is telling us, and completely surrender. So now that Daiva as Prarabdha is explained further now. Prarabdha karma parikalpita vasanabhihi samsari vacharati bhuktishu mukta dehaha siddha swayam vasati sakshivadatra tushnim chakrasya मूलमिव kalpa vikalpa shunyaha. Prarabdha karma parikalpita vasanabhihi. Because of the prarabdha karma, whatever vasanas are ready to fructify, samsari vat charati bhuktishu mukta dehe. Just like a samsari, the jivan mukta also appears to be exhausting the prarabdha and maybe going through sense enjoyments, bhuktishu mukta dehaha, but there is no attachment to the body. That is the important word there. So the samsari and the jivan mukta appear to be enjoying, working, achieving, but one has deep body identification and ignorance of the self, the other has no body identification and complete awareness of the self. Siddha swayam vasati sakshivad atra tushnim. So internally, what is their attitude for the jivan, for the samsari? It is, I am doing all this. So there is ahankara. For jivan mukta, what it is? I am akarta, I am abhokta, I am an uninvolved, unaffected observer. Sakshivat atra. So the Siddha means the Jivan Mukta abides in the Sakshi Bhav. The BMI is doing prompted by what? Past karma, past vasanas, that's prarabdha karma. So we don't have to worry about what will happen after realization. Will my will my life become dull, boring? Why are you bothered? If that entity only is false, then why we are bothered? What will happen after realization to this BMI? How does it matter? Past karma will take care of it. You are Brahman, full stop. There is no concern, in fact. There is no identification with the BMI. So, in one way, for us as a seeker, this shloka also tells us why should we bother after realization what will happen to the body, mind, intellect. If we want to know what is the state of realization, that yes, because then we are inspired to strive for it. And knowledge wise, even if we want to know what will happen after that, that question, what will happen after that, will disappear. Number one. Number two, duality will be gone. Number three, if at all, then there is a Sakshi Bhav, then that is there, and then the BMI will function based on past karma. So why should we bother? And if so much attachment is there to the BMI that we are not able to drop it, then so again nothing to bother. Why? Because realization won't happen. Sakshivad atra vasati sakshivad tushnim lives quietly as a sakshi. That tushnim is not only at the mind level. Tushnim is sakshi's nature. Lives in the peace of the self, who is the witness. Mind may be disturbed, mind may be sad. That is mind's nature. That is not I. The true I is not connected to the mind. Tushnim, Sakshivad Atra Tushnim, is always at peace. What is the example? Chakrasya Moolam Iva. The potter's wheel, the base of the potter's wheel, on which that wheel is rotating, that base remains motionless. The wheel is mounted on that, and then with the stick, the potter may move it, then take a lump of clay, put it on that, and then shape the pot. So the mud is moving, the hand of that potter is giving shape to that moving mud, the pot is moving in the wheel is moving in a particular speed. That has nothing to do with the axle or the base on which all this is mounted. That will go on. Whether that wheel moves very fast or very slow makes no difference to that pivot. It will make all difference to the pot. If you have tried pottery, you know it. Very delicate art. If the wheel is moving in a particular speed and one has to carefully make that pot. If that speed becomes too slow and then one puts more pressure, the whole pot goes. All that shape, everything gone. Is a art, is a delicate way how to make it. One will understand once. Most of the time when we do pottery workshop, the potter only makes the pot. They just help us. They say, okay, touch it, and we feel very good about it. Oh, I made this pot. They'll cut out and give it to you also. Take, this is your pot. So the whole speed and everything is managed by the potter only. But the pivot has nothing to do with it. Without the pivot, that wheel will not move. Pot cannot be created. But that speed, the pot, whether it is created, not created, or is idly moving, makes no difference to the pivot. It is just there. Same thing. The BMI is functioning. So we don't worry what will happen after realization. BMI will function if it has to. It will drop if it has to. No concern with that. So potter's wheel, the wheel may move or the wheel may come to stand still. It makes no difference to the pivot. It is there supporting the wheel in both conditions. Atma illumines the presence, Atma illumines the absence. If thoughts are there, it illumines the presence. If it is not there, it illumines the absence. Body is there, it illumines. Body is not there, it doesn't illumine. No difference to the self. We may think of it, oh God, that is so boring. It is not. The life as a jiva is boring, not life as Brahman. This boring concept is what keeps us bound also. Life after life, we keep going, searching new pleasures, wanting to explore new places, new experiences, new people. Because why? Same thing is boring. Variety is the spice of life. Wonderful. Keep eating spice. So our mind keeps us going round and round in Maya because we think something new has to happen, something exciting has to happen. It is same Samatvam Brahma, Samam Brahma, it is said. The Brahman is equanimous. That is so boring. Forget Brahman level equanimity. At the mind level itself, people say, how boring would that be? Every time be just equanimous. Can't get elated in happiness, can't get depressed in sorrow. Vita raga bhaya krodha, no fear, no anger, no agitation, no attachment. Boring life. Try it first. Amazing life it is actually. Because quiet mind is most happy mind, and when one transcends the mind, then to blissful is that state of awareness. They don't come down to this level. The pleasures of this world will appear like what we call the stench of a gutter, the stinking smell of a gutter. How it will be unbearable for the people who have realized the bliss of Brahman. I'm just giving analogy to make the contrast. For they don't experience duality, that's a different level altogether. But at this level where we see they are the Sakshi, they revel in that state of bliss. Temptations of the world, pleasures in the world, excitement, variety. One great devotee from Rajasthan, Karmaiti Bai. This Karmaiti Bai was a great bhakta of Lord Krishna. And from childhood, she is, because some past janma samskar will be there. So this Karmaiti Bai used to meditate on Krishna. Her mind will be absorbed in Krishna. She would be very blissful, not interested in worldly things. Parents used to, say that, oh, she's such a uh, obedient child, very well cultured, well mannered. She is sattvic in mind. She listens to the elders. So everybody used to praise her. But in her mind, she has surrendered to the Lord Krishna fully. So when she grew up, now she is not interested in worldly life. But society doesn't understand all that. So they forcefully got her married. When she was young still, though the marriage has happened, she is living in her parents' house for some time. At the right time, the husband has to arrive. will come and take her and go. So now her marriage happened, but she was living at home and she is absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord, singing the glory of the Lord, doing japa of the Krishna mantra. So she is doing in and through all her daily work, everything she does all that. Then she realized one day that the next day the husband is going to come to take her and go. Now she also came to know that in her husband's family they don't believe in God, they don't worship the Lord, they don't do satkar of sadhu santa. And this Karmaiti Bai is thinking, what is that? Why will I go to such a house? And I don't want to live there. I don't want to be bound by so many shackles in the relationship. This body is just a instrument, and why will I go and live a life of enjoyment and sense pleasure? And they expect me to, uh, engage in all these things. I will not be able to do that. Now she's thinking. Everybody has gone to sleep. It's night. She takes courage and she says, I have to quit. Overnight, she walks out of the house. Nobody knows. She also doesn't know where she has to go, what she has to do, but she just left the house and went. And Rajasthan. So she is walking fast. She has lost sense of space, time. She has forgotten everything. She is just walking. Doesn't know where she is going. Next morning, the mother gets up, finds that the girl is not there. They search here and there but can't find her. They are very worried. The father actually is a purohit in the with the king. He is a priest. So that is one of the reasons also how Karmaiti Bai developed so much of bhakti, because she used to see her father worshipping the Lord and studying the scriptures and all that. So the father went to the king and said, my daughter has overnight gone away somewhere. Can you please help to find? In his mind, he knows that she doesn't want to live in the samsaric way, so she has gone. But he is attached to her, and he is also worried that, what will people say, society, that the daughter ran away. So the king sent out soldiers. Now Karmaiti Bai is walking on the foot, the soldiers are on the horse, so they go in all directions. Two soldiers come in the direction where Karmaiti Bai is going. Karmaiti Bai suddenly realizes that, oh, there are some soldiers, possibly they are searching me only. Where to go and hide? She is in a desert. There is no tree, there is no, building, nothing. It's just vast amount of sand everywhere and hot sun. But there she finds a carcass of a camel. The stomach and the intestines, etc., of the camel have been as though removed. Some animals must have eaten it or somebody took it away. There is a hide. The hide of the camel is there. Some, flesh is there in that camel. Karmaiti Bai goes and hides inside that. It is stinking like anything. But you know what she is saying? She thinks in her mind, the stink of the sense pleasures and the world is unbearable compared to this stink. I can bear it because I have to meet Krishna. I don't want to live in a samsari way. The soldiers come there, they don't even look at that carcass because it is stinking like hell. They go away from there. And she waits in that for a long time so that, nobody comes back again. And after that, she walks and goes up to Vrindavan. Stays, goes to Vrindavan there because the land of Krishna. And in those days, Vrindavan, I have not been today to Vrindavan, so I don't know. But I am told that in those days, a lot of Krishna bhaktas used to be there, and Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, Bhajan, many things would happen. So she goes to Vrindavan, she is most satisfied, but she doesn't want to live in Vrindavan amidst so much of crowd and people and all that. So she finds one Brahmakund in Vrindavan, away from the usual crowded area in the forest, and she starts living there as a yogini. Most of the time, her mind revels in Brahman, in the Lord. She eats some fruits and whatever is available in the forest just to make the body survive, but otherwise, she is not interested. The father finally, searching everywhere, comes to Vrindavan, but he can't find Karmaiti Bai anywhere there. So what does he do? He knows that my daughter must have come here somewhere. She must be here. So finally he climbs up some tree and he looks far, and from that tree he is able to see that at a certain distance there's a kund there and there is some yogini there living. So he goes there and he sees. He is thrilled to find his daughter there. But at the same time, he's sad also because she is in a yogini form. She has, very long hair. And she is not even in consciousness, conscious awareness. She is not there. She is in samadhi avastha actually. So the father is sitting there waiting, waiting. Hours pass by and she doesn't come out. Father shakes her up finally and she comes out of that state. Father is very happy to see her. But the father says, "You please come back. Let us go. Your mother is there. All of us are there. Why are you living here like this?" You know what she says? She says, "I am reveling in that bliss of the Lord. Don't ask me to come back to that stinking place again. I have left that samsar and I am belonging to Krishna, and Krishna alone pervades me. I don't even exist. So, whom are you asking to come back?" The king also finds out. The king himself comes. When he understands that she is not an ordinary person, she has become a Mahatma there. Nobody is able to convince her. She lives there, reveling in that bliss of the Supreme. So sometimes it is like that, that our mind thinks that, oh, that life is boring. Huh? That life is not at all boring. Look at any great Mahatma's life. Anyone, any example you take, not only in our culture, across the world you can take. Their life is the life which we can truly say that they enjoy. They revel in really the bliss. We run behind the shadow of that bliss. All the Vishayananda is one little shadow, a speck of that Brahmananda. And we are running behind the speck and we can't leave the speck. The Mahatmas are saying, "Arey, come to the main source and we will revel in that." But our mind says, "No, no, no, this is most important. How can I leave this? That though I don't even know, this though I know, that is intangible, this is tangible through senses." So our mind has this conflict, and that is why sadhu sangati is most important. Not because of any scholarliness or any big thing. No, the bliss in which they are reveling, when we associate with them, then only we will know. Otherwise, it is impossible to know. So you see here, Tapon Maharaj, you see, what does he say? He is speaking about one great sadhu. Now he says here that for a man of realization, everything is Brahman. By the vibration of the mind, all this which appears in the form of the subject or object is nothing but Brahman, 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 Brahman alone is there, nothing else is there. Yesterday I told you, the foam example, that in that context is saying that all the objects of the all the objects are of the nature of Satchidananda Brahman. All the countries and all concepts of time are nothing but the foam and the waves on this ocean of Satchidanand. The mountains and the forests and the trees, the oceans with their playful waves, all of them are bubbles on this ocean of bliss. Then he says, ha ha. In all things, we see this Satchidanand. In the midst of the peaceful Himalayas as well as in the noisy cities, we see this Paramatman. Then he gives the anecdote of a sadhu. So what he says here, in this context, I remember the brave word, the true word of an Avadhut Mahatma on the banks of Bhagirathi. His pure word has more power than the arguments of the scientists and the scholars, and hence I shall quote it here. Now see that anecdote. Simple it is, but very powerful from the sadhana standpoint to understand what is the importance of a sadhu sangati. So this Mahatma is being asked question by some people. Question: Mahatma ji, where are you staying? Answer: Brahman. Is your body not suffering from cold and heat? Answer: Brahman. Can you describe your experience? Brahman. What is the truth? Brahman. What are all these mountains, forests and rivers? Brahman. Did you eat today? Brahman. At another time, a devotee fed that Mahatma with tasty food in his mouth and asked him, has the hunger been appeased? Brahman. Look at that. Anecdote is simple, but this is the culmination of full sadhana. To live in this state where everything is Brahman only. What a state it is. That is what this Jivan Mukta goes through. Nothing but Brahman alone. Up, down, left, right, if you say, is all Brahman. So that is the bliss in which they revel. So if they live in this body, they live as a Sakshi. If at all we have to understand from our standpoint, it is they live as a Sakshi, but they are reveling in bliss of Brahman only. And that vision when one has, then one doesn't feel like running behind anything in this world. One lives as a Sakshi. The BMI will do its job as a Prarabdha. Whatever is the past momentum, it will carry on. Continuing. 553. नैवेन्द्रियाणि विषयेषु नियुङ्क्त एष नैवापयुङ्क्त उपदर्शनलक्षणस्थः नैव क्रियाफलमपीश दवेक्षते सः स्वानन्दसान्द्ररसपान समुत्तचित्तः न एव इंद्रियाणि विषयेषु नियुङ्क्त. He does not direct, he or she does not direct the senses towards the sense objects. Naiva upayunkte upadarshana lakshanastha. Nor does he detach them from the senses and stay in self-control. Naiva kriya falamapisha davekshate saha. One just remains as an onlooker, as a sakshi. Why? Swananda Sandra Rasa Apana Samutta Chitta, because the mind is drunk with the bliss, the wine of the bliss of the self. Ah. So, any fruits of action, any sense pleasures, one neither sends the mind there nor withdraws. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. One may eat, not eat, enjoy, not enjoy. It all depends on the prarabdha. Whatever comes, they live in that state. You see that Mahatma, no, how he is living. Brahman, he is reveling in the bliss of Brahman. He has no other answer for anything except Brahman. And it is not theory. You and I can say things in theory, it will make no difference. You know, we may have studied many things, so intellectually we may say, oh, Brahman alone is. These people are reveling in that, so it is a direct experience. So they are actually saying Brahman. When we say Brahmarpanam Brahmavi, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina, for us it is a sadhana to see everything as Brahman. For them, it is their avastha. They are living in that state. The person who is asking also is Brahman for them. The food is it being eaten is Brahman. This is also Brahman. Everything is Brahman. That's why it says drunk by the Swa Ananda Sandra Rasa Pana. They drunk in the wine of the bliss of the self. Just like that wine, yesterday we saw the example of the intoxicated person. That person forgets oneself and lives in one's own world. Like that, these Mahatmas, they are living in that state of bliss. So they don't direct the senses, now go for this, now eat that, nothing. Nor they withdraw from it. See, some of these things one doesn't understand, then we only follow the externalities. Gautam Buddha was a prince earlier, Siddhartha. Then he lived in great tapasya and he realized, and then he is living as a bhikshu. Whatever comes in the bhiksha, he will eat. He is not asking, give me the specific food, nor is he, rejecting what is being given as bhiksha. One day somebody put meat in his bowl, he ate it. Now his state is a state of realization. Our state is something else. So we have to follow sadhana method properly. Sattvic food one has to eat, all that one has to follow. After that, then one is not hankering behind it or rejecting it. That's a different state altogether. But many people, they misunderstand all this. Buddha also ate meat. Vivekananda ate fish. Why should I? Arey, Vivekananda ate fish. What are we saying? His level and our level, you can't compare. So externally, if we just see something and then we try to apply this, then we are deluding ourselves. The realized man doesn't reject anything, doesn't hanker after anything. So first line is hanker, doesn't hanker. So have you stopped all hankering? No, that is not stopped. Then just follow the sadhana method. Second line he says here that the withdrawal also that person doesn't do because there is no hankering. If there is no hankering, where the question of any withdrawal? Neither rejecting nor craving, accepting what comes, they live in that state. And Buddha died also like that. The food that was given to him, some people say people have poisoned him, some others say that the food by itself it was pork or something like that he was eating, and then it was infected, and then he got disease, and then he died. But it makes no difference to him. He has gone beyond body identification, and one should see what type of sadhana these masters have done. When we are in sadhak avastha, then we have to follow the sadhanas. We can't just directly look at the realized people and their externalities and then live by that. That we cannot do. So here is somebody who lives absorbed in that bliss and has no attachment to senses, sense objects, doesn't reject, doesn't crave, and has no attachment even to fruits of action. Kriya phalam api ishad avekshate saha. There is no attachment to the fruits of action. In fact, there is least regard for the fruits of action. When we are in Jiva Bhav, we fight for it. So this is my right. I have done this karma. I have to get the karma phala. Why did I not get? I deserve this. All that we do, we fight for that. And we may say that, okay, in the world, that kind of things may be necessary. Otherwise, people will, take you for granted and all that. From the worldly standpoint, we may have our reasons to do also. But I'm saying from the personal Jiva standpoint, Jiva will fight for karma phala because Jiva is karta bhav. One who has gone beyond karta bhav, bhokta bhav doesn't bother. So when the body drops, also it doesn't matter to them because the body is going through, body itself is a result of prarabdha karma phala. I mean the sanchita karma. And it is going through a certain prarabdha. It will drop at a point in time. The job of this body is over. Realize the self. लक्ष्य गतिं त्यक्त्वा यस्तिष्ठेत् केवलात्मना शिव एव स्वयं साक्षात् अयं ब्रह्म विदुत्तमः लक्ष्य अलक्ष्य गतिं त्यक्त्वा the focus to achieve a goal lakshya or alakshya not to deviate from that goal, the anxiety to reach that goal. One has dropped both these things, lakshya and alakshya. The complete focus to go there or the deviation. We have to go from deviation to focus. From alakshya to lakshya we have to go. They have gone beyond both. Lakshya alakshya gatim tyaktva. Yattishtet keval atmana, one who remains only as the self. Which means the goal here is the desire for liberation. Meaning that state of liberation is the goal. The means is that desire. So focus, so mumukshutvam. After a point, mumukshutvam also gone. Why? Because I am already that Brahman. Thinking of oneself as a jiva, then one says, no, vivek, vairagya, shatka, sampatti, mumukshutvam required. Then go to the guru, serve, then listen, reflect, contemplate. What is that contemplation now? I am Brahman. That steady contemplation leads to the awareness that I was, am, will always be Brahman. In fact, I am eternal. So was, is, will be doesn't even apply as a language limitation. So there is no goal to be reached now because one is already what one is seeking. When I don't know I am already what I am seeking, then we say, no, that is unknown. This is from the known. The BMI is known. The self is unknown. From known to unknown, we have to go. And for that, have intensity, single pointedness, develop burning desire for liberation. All that has a place in sadhana. Here is a Mahatma who is reached. So there is no lakshya, there is no alakshya. Yastishtet keval atmana. So final stages of contemplation, the desire for liberation also drops away completely. That's why it is absolute desireless state. No desire at all, not even desire for realization. Then what is this nature? Shiva eva swayam sakshat. That person is divinity, has become divine. Again, I am saying become divine. It's not that the person was not divine before. There divinity alone earlier also. Shiva eva swayam sakshat ayam brahmavid uttamaha. And here is somebody who is the best amongst the knower of Brahman. Brahmavid uttamaha. So Gurudev has written here, I must move towards the self. I must not move towards the not self. I am slipping away from the goal. This, etc. In him, there is no more this anxiety. Why? The anxiety to reach the goal will leave when the goal is reached. And here it is that the goal was always reached. It's not that now one has reached that goal. No, no, no. So that person remains Shivam. Shiva eva swayam sakshat. Remains as the self alone. That state is called Jivan Mukti. Jivan eva sada muktaha kritartho brahma vittamaha upadhinashat brahmaiva sanbrahmapyeti nirdvayam. Jivan eva sada muktaha. While living itself, one who is ever free. See, this is concept of Jivan Mukti, which is only in Advaita Vedanta. Can you imagine? Of all the different schools of philosophy, schools of thought that we have in our Sanatan Dharma, 6 schools of philosophy, the main ones, Astika Darshana, then there is Nastik Darshan also. In all these 6 schools of philosophy, only this Vedant, which is Uttara Mimamsa, believes in Jivan Mukti. Even in that Vedant, Dvait Vedant, Vishishtadvait Vedant, Dvaitadvait Vedant, Shuddhadvait Vedant, Advait Vedant, that Advait Vedant only believes, even in Vedant. So if we are studying this, it means what a tiny minuscule group of people who are following the path of Advaita believe in Jivan Mukti. Think about that. Majority does not. Nastik Darshan to doesn't even believe in Mukti. Some of them will believe, but they don't believe in God or Veda. Astik Darshan also, there are combinations, but most of them, the Mukti concept will be go to some loka, become like God, have qualities like the Lord, look like the Lord, all that. Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, Sayujya also. Sayujya also is not equal to Jivan Mukti. After death it is. Jivan eva sada mukta. While living here and now, that person is realized. Kritartho has done what needs to be done. That is called Kritartha. All objective what one has to achieve. Artha means objective. So we say Purushartha. Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha. When one attains moksha, one is called Kritartha. Because there is nothing more to be attained. Kritartho. Brahmavit Tamaha. The best of the knowers of Brahman. Upadhinashat Brahmaiva. When this body drops, so the Jivan Mukta is living. At some point the prarabdha will be over, the body drops. Upadhinashat Brahmaiva san. Brahma piyeti nirdvayam. What happens to that Jivan Mukta? Jivan Mukta while living only was Brahman. So after death what will happen? Brahman only one is. There is no going and coming for the Jivan Mukta. There is no Punarjanma. There is no going to any loka of the Devata. None of that. Brahmaiva. So more of it we will take up tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.